Hi, hope you're doing good. If you're new to my channel, hello. My name is Jasmine. You can call me Jazz. Usually we like to do a lot of chaotic things on this channel, a lot of crackhead energy going on, a lot of questionable videos. So this is not the typical video. However, this is a video that I've been planning on making for about a year, and it just needs to happen. I start school again in, holy shit, 9 days. And I am terrified. I literally start school on the 22nd, and then the day after, the 23rd, is my birthday. Like, everything's gonna happen at once, and I'm terrified. Anyways, so I graduated high school in 2019, and then I was at ASU, Arizona State, for about a year. I studied dance. ASU just wasn't working out for me. I was having a lot of issues with my health, so I decided to take a gap year, and that's where I'm at now. If you want more information about kind of why I decided to take a break from school and stuff, I do have a whole video about it. Please go watch that for more context. Thank you. I don't want to have to re-explain myself. Today I just thought we would kind of reflect on what I learned over my gap year and why I think taking a gap year was maybe the best decision I've ever made. I grew up having a really hard time with kind of perfectionism when it comes to my schoolwork. I grew up going to a Montessori school, so in Montessori, we didn't have grades, we didn't have tests, we didn't have homework, things like that. And you're probably very confused and like, how did you get educated? I did become educated, don't you worry. That's another thing. I would love to make a video talking about my experience growing up in a Montessori school. If anybody wants that, just let me know. Anyway, so when I went to high school, I went to a public high school. It was a pretty dramatic shift for me. Transitioning to grades, tests, worrying about, getting projects, essays, things like that became pretty stressful for me, and I had a lot of perfectionism issues with that. I was scared to get a B. I was scared to get anything below, an A, an A+, whatever. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. I sacrificed a lot of happiness for that, a lot of social time for that. I didn't have a good balance. And I'm also very lucky that my parents did not put that pressure on myself. That pressure was coming from me. I'm very lucky that there was no external pressure. But essentially when I went to college, it just got out of hand, and I didn't know how to let go of that perfectionism, going above and beyond, perfect notes and perfect grades, and studying for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And I just kind of broke down, and it was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot grind anymore. I am burnt out. And school was my life. I didn't do fun things. I didn't go out with friends. And it had been like that since freshman year of high school. I had no time for fun stuff. I was super depressed in my dorm. I was not having a good time. I deal with a lot of both physical health issues as well as mental health issues, like we all do. And it just got to a point where I think my parents and I decided to just draw the line. And it was like, Jasmine, I think we're gonna stop it. So I was just like, why don't I take a year to really decide what I want to do and try to really break the mindset of wanting to be the best student and be the most academic and be the smartest, and really figure out, do I even want to go to college? Is this something that I want to do? What do I want to study? But your reasons for taking a gap year might be completely different. But I think whatever reason you are thinking of to take a gap year is valid. Whether you want to travel, whether you want to just have a break from school, whether you just want to stop and work, whether you want to focus on your mental health, or you want to focus on maybe you're dealing with some physical health issues. I think that whatever reason it is, it's valid. There is no timeline. There are no deadlines. Something I'm really trying to remind myself is that, with college and stuff, there was just no questions asked. It was like, of course, I'm going to graduate high school and go to college. Like, that was just always the plan, because that was what all my peers were doing. I've really taken this last year to reflect on just kind of life and society and how just fucked up it is. And I'm like, why is there a timeline set in stone for all of us? I've gotten to a point where I am like, I could fully do my first semester back at school, and if I don't like it, then I don't like it, and guess what? I'm not going to go to college right now, and I could go to college when I'm 30. Like, it does not matter. It is a personal goal of mine to want to graduate college and get a degree in something. I think it's so wonderful that at this point in life and time and where we're at as a society, that like, you can easily get through life successfully without a college degree. Like, I am fully aware of that, and I think that's such a wonderful thing. I feel like maybe 10, 20 years ago, the answer to that question might be a little bit different, but I think it's so cool that nowadays there's so many ways that people can be successful in whatever they love without a college degree. I mean, it depends on the subject, right? If you want to become like a doctor, then like, that's one thing. But especially in the arts, Anyways, we're getting very off topic, but whatever. I just need to let this all out. Anyways, so what I did during my gap year, the first thing was prioritizing my health. Taking a gap year really allowed me to take a lot of time for more therapy sessions, more doctor's appointments. August, September, October, I had doctor's appointments. What felt like every single day kind of took over my life. It still kind of takes over my life, but not as much as it did. I went from having therapy once every 2 weeks to every week, and if I was in school, I wouldn't have had time for all that, which I think is stupid, but I wouldn't have. And I'm happy to report that while I'm still kind of struggling with some of my physical health stuff, which I'm not really going to go into detail about because it's pretty personal, but some things have kind of cleared up a little bit, others have not, and that's okay. But I feel like if I was in school, I wouldn't have made nearly as much progress or found out as much information as I did. I just wouldn't have had time for it. So that was really cool. Well, not really cool. It was kind of a lot. That's the other thing. I think people think of a gap year and they think like, oh my god, I'm gonna like take a year and like travel and do fun shit and whatever. This was not necessarily a fun year for me. Yes, I did a lot of fun things and I definitely was a lot happier this year than I have been throughout the rest of my life, but I was also had moments where I was the most sad. My depression was horrible. There were times where I was in a lot of, physical pain, distress, a lot of doctor's appointments. The things that I was trying to get done were not fun things. In the grand scheme of things, it was a great year because I did get to do all that and I did get to figure all that out. I think a lot of times I told people that I was taking a gap year and they're like, wow, so you just get to kind of like do whatever you want all the time. It's like, no, I'm struggling a little bit. I also want to put that kind of in your back pocket of like, if you're going to take a gap year, it doesn't need to be sunshine and rainbows. Like maybe there's some tough things that you need to figure out. You know what I mean? Anyways, but speaking of traveling, I did get to do some traveling. I went to Austin, Texas. That was really fun. I did that for my birthday. I also did something that I probably never thought I would ever be able to do. I traveled alone to New York back in November and I stayed with Jules at her house for about 2 weeks. I distinctly remember sitting on the train, Jules and I were going to the city, and I just remember looking out the window and just being like, I am so happy right now. I think why I felt that way was because it was like I wasn't going to school. I didn't have all this stress of, homework and shit, but I also didn't have all this pressure from society. It was like I had finally like broken through the wall of like not doing what society wants me to do and like, just pushing through 4 years of school, and it was like I'd finally broken that barrier, broken that barrier, whatever. And it was like I was just doing my own thing and doing what I wanted to do in that moment, and for the first time I just felt kind of like free. I don't know, it was a great feeling, but I definitely wouldn't have been able to travel alone if I hadn't have been, one, put on meds, but two, had a lot of more sessions with my therapist, figured out a lot more of my health stuff, whatever. It wouldn't have been possible for me to be able to travel alone. I would have been too anxious. There would have been too many health things to deal with. It just was not something that I would have been able to do. It was a big like kind of independence step for me, and that was really cool. Taking this year, I really needed to make sure that I was prioritizing doing things that were going to bring me joy. Talk a lot about this in my video where I talk about why I decided to take a gap year and all that. As you're probably aware of, I did get to focus a lot more on my YouTube channel, and that was probably one of the biggest things that happened this year. I went from about 300 subscribers to now we're almost at 4,000, so that's kind of crazy. Yeah, we've had a wild ride with my YouTube channel over the last year. Sometimes we have videos like this where it's nice, wholesome Jasmine. Other videos, we're dressed up as Pitbull. It's a crazy time. Nobody can expect anything. And I continue to have mental breakdowns about what this YouTube channel is. And you know what? Maybe that's okay. Also, by doing more things that brought me joy, I was able to find myself and feel comfortable with myself. And I finally felt like I got me back. I finally felt really confident for the first time in a very long time. I think if I was in school, it would have been really hard to do that. When you're at school, you're constantly influenced by those around you. People my age, I am so intimidated by people the same age as me and comparing myself and where they were at in life when it came to independence or their appearance or money or whatever it was. But by taking a gap year and kind of spending this whole year like alone, I was able to just kind of like shut all that out and just really focus on myself and acknowledge that where I'm at in my life at this age, at this time is okay. And I've also come to a lot of realizations of like, hey, this is all gonna change. You're not gonna be the same person forever, and that's okay. You don't need to hold yourself to the same standard your whole life. You don't need to present yourself in the same way to others your whole life, and just whatever you love right now is wonderful. Live it up, and you might love other things in the next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, and that's okay. I think for a long time I was just kind of like, who is Jasmine and who is Jasmine going to be for the rest of her life? When it came to picking a major, or, you know, again, my appearance, or the way I presented myself to others, it was kind of like, okay, who is Jasmine and who is she going to be for the rest of my life? Like, I felt like I had to kind of pick one identity, and like that was going to be me forever. But I came to the realization that just like, hey Jasmine, why don't you just love what you love right now, and then love what you love later, and that's okay. I really struggle with like worrying about regretting things. Like, I'm gonna look back on myself in the past and be like, oh, she was so cringy or whatever. And I'm like, there's no avoiding that. We're all gonna look back on our life and be like, wow, she was really cringy, or maybe that wasn't the best, you know, way to go for me. But as long as you're doing whatever you love in this particular moment, you're never going to regret anything. Once I realized that, I just felt like I could relax. It was like, Jasmine, just wear what you want to wear right now. Make whatever video you want to make in this very moment. Then that way, when you look back, you're not going to say, oh, wow, she was really cringy. You weren't yourself. I'm going to say, that was what I wanted to do in that moment, and that's great. I feel like I'm not making any sense. I really just need to kind of let this all out. I hope that's okay. Also, throughout this last year, I went through a lot of change. Both physically, mentally. I am a completely different person than I was a year ago. A year ago, I was not confident. I was very anxious. I didn't want to exist. Didn't like going out in public. Was scared to talk to people. I was very insecure. I was crying all the time. Didn't love myself. I didn't have any compassion for myself. I was not good. But now I can confidently say that at this point, it might change. At this point in time, that I feel like I finally really love myself, and I love who I am, and I'm looking forward to meeting whoever I become in the future. I feel like I've finally figured out kind of my joys in life. That's one thing about taking a gap year, is that when you're in high school, you're constantly influenced by others and your peers, what you like, what classes should you take, what you major in, where you go to college, all that sort of stuff. And there's so much focus on academics that there is no time for you to explore and try and make realizations about yourself. Like, there is no time for that. So of course I'm going to go to college and not feel very satisfied with what I'm doing, because I didn't have any time to figure out what I really wanted to do. I decided to study dance for my first year of college, because dance was the only thing I really liked in high school. Yes, I love dance. I continue to dance today. That was kind of it. That was the only thing that was bringing me joy. I didn't have a lot of time to discover other things that I liked. I think if you take a gap year, yes, you might travel. Yes, you might just, be sitting at your job all day, whatever it might be, but you're going to have a lot of time to think and reflect and figure out what you gravitate towards. You're going to have a lot of time on your hands, and you're going to figure out what you want to fill that time with and what you don't want to fill that time with. I had time to try lots of different things. I, again, worked on my YouTube channel, tried, playing more music. I bought an iPad and I got really into graphic design and animation, and I would have never had any time or any sort of opportunity to try that sort of stuff when I was in school. And now look at me. I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna study art media and technology. I would have never thought that was something that yes, I loved those sorts of things in high school, but I never had time to really hone in on them and see if they were something that I really liked. I put a lot of pressure on myself at the beginning of the gap year. It was okay, I've got a year. I've got to do it all. I've got to figure it all out. I've got to figure out who I am. I've got to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to just fill all my time during the gap year. But I would say 50% of the gap year was me just kind of sitting around. And in the moment, I was not a fan of that, but I am so grateful for that time I had to just kind of sit around and sit with my own thoughts. I would have never had just kind of peace and silence to just kind of reflect on who I am and society and my place in the world. I just feel like it's much needed. Like we all need that time. And the way society wants us to go is it's just, go to high school, go to college, get a job, get married, There is no time in there. There's no allotted time for just reflection and to discover yourself and to figure it all out. You just kind of move with the herd, and the herd doesn't stop. I don't know. I acknowledge that this was something that I was very privileged with. I'm very lucky that my parents, they let me live at home. I had the time to live at home. I had the resources to get, the medical help that I needed. I understand that this is not something that everybody can do, but I think if you have the opportunity to do it, you should, because it might kind of change your life. I don't know. I also think that, with my perfectionism and all that jazz, I kind of had a lot of guilt with, like, if I'm not working hard during this year, then I am not working. I am lazy. This is pointless. I'm wasting my time. I struggled a lot with that. But I was working hard. I was just working hard in ways that I wasn't used to. My brain was working extra hard. My brain was overheating, in fact, to A, keep me alive, B, to keep me sane, and C, to also just kind of help me be happy again. So my brain was working super hard. My body was working really hard. I was really working hard to keep my body working hard. That didn't make sense. Hopefully you know what I mean. I was also working really hard on my YouTube channel. I had a lot of kind of guilt of like, oh, I have like a YouTube channel, whatever. But there were a lot of instances this year where working on my YouTube channel was kind of a necessity. Even though the video might have been really silly, or maybe I didn't spend a lot of time on it, whatever it might be, there were times where working on my YouTube channel really helped me kind of escape some of my dark thoughts and just gave me something to focus on and something to do. So as silly as my videos might be, it gave me something to work on. It gave me a new way of thinking of what does it mean to work hard on something. Maybe sometimes, you don't have to go and be above and beyond on everything. Maybe it's okay to just do your best in that moment. Going above and beyond can mean different things at different times. And so you might find the same thing if you take a gap year, that you're gonna be like, oh, I'm not like working, this is just one big vacation. It's not gonna be one big vacation. So don't expect it to be. Even if you do travel or whatever, I wouldn't think of it as one big vacation, because you're still gonna learn things about yourself. If you go from, 18 years of just straight school all the time, and then you take a whole year to travel, to just work, to whatever, it is such a big just change in your life that you're going to learn a lot of different things, whether you like it or not. Something I learned this year is that you learn something from every experience, whether the experience is good, whether the experience is bad. I did a lot of things this year that I didn't want to do, that I was scared about. At the beginning of the gap year, God no, could I go to the doctors alone? I had so many doctor's appointments that now I'm at a point where I go to a lot of my doctor's appointments alone. And that's not something I would have ever been able to practice. That's not something I would have been able to have the courage to do, but I was kind of forced into it. And now I've learned so much, and now I'm able to go to my doctor's appointments on my own. I mean, my mom still comes to some because I can't retain all the information that they tell me, but I learned that being independent looks different for everybody. You're going to get a lot of new experiences. Again, some might be good, some might be bad, some might be neutral, but whatever it is, you're going to learn something. Speaking of experiences, I do have therapy in 1 minute, so I do need to go. I hope this was okay. I just needed to ramble, let it all out. Long story short, if you're planning on taking a gap year, please do it. It's going to change your life. Again, no matter your reason for it, if you have the opportunity to, and you are financially able, mentally able, whatever it might be, I think you should. I never thought that I would be somebody to take a gap year, but doing so has completely changed my life. I moved. I'm going to a completely different school. I'm going to be studying something that I never thought I would have the guts to study. I vote that you should. I'm going to go have a therapy session, and then I'm going to go have lunch with my childhood best friend, so that should be really fun. But I love you a lot, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, I love you. Okay, bye.